Cool name, Kurt. You are watching Gouche Live, featuring Paul Rosen, my good buddy. I'm Kerry Goulet, better known as the Gouche.
Paul Rosen, better known as Rosie.
You know what, Rosie? We are in warm-up. So, you know what that means? When we're in warm-up, we're going to say that Tommy Grossman's coming on the show today. You met him, you know him. He's done a lot of sports films and production. He's a producer, and he's got some great stories. And one of them happens to be some of the times when we were with him at the Hockey Hall of Fame for the Legends Classic. And, of course, he's got a great Gretzky story. And then one of my favorite guys, one of those crusty guys, Scott Taylor.
Love him. Love him. Love Scott. He's a legend. Like E.F. Hutton, when he speaks, everybody listens.
Crusty guy, I love him. Listen, and we'll talk a little bit about what he's up to, and of course we're going to get into some. I'll introduce him in a few minutes as we get closer. Listen, what we're going to do in first period is we're going to talk about the most impressive single season stats. I go online and I look for all these things to talk about, Paul, and I just think I know your favorites. I'm going to read off quickly the top 10, and then you and I are going to pick 1, 2, 3. All right? They don't necessarily have to be together.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Let's go for it. First period.
All right. So first period coming up. Here it goes. And you know what? We've got our good buddy in sunny Vancouver, Greg Bowden. Great to be along. And I probably don't think it's sunny in Ottawa, but certainly want to say hi to Robert Wine. All right. Here we go. I'm going to read off the top 10 really quickly. Bobby Orr, 139 points. Mario Lemieux, 160 points in 60 games. Wayne Gretzky's 92 goals. I think there should be more about that. But Maurice Richard, 50 goals, 50 games. In those days, wow, that's big. Tony Esposito's 15 shutouts. I know you're a Chicago Blackhawk fan. Timo Solani, 76 goals as a rookie. You know I'm a Winnipeg Jets fan. Dominic Hasek, I know he's a buddy of yours. 13 shutouts. Of course, we have to say Alexander Ovechkin, 65 goals. Nikita Kucherov, 128 points with the Tampa Bay Lightning, a pretty good year he had. And Mike Green, I don't know where this one came from, 31 goals. I know there's probably a lot more. We're just throwing those out there for right now. Okay? So why don't we talk about, we'll go with our top 3. Obviously, I'd like to order them all, but it would take us a while. And I know that we're going to have a little bit of fun deciding who our top 3 is. So let's do rock, paper, scissors.
Okay. What did you do? So you got a scissor and I got a rock. So a rock breaks a scissor?
Okay, I'm up first for 50 goals in 47 games. Anders Hedberg.
That's your third?
No, Greg Bowden just popped it up.
I didn't see that. I didn't see it. Where's that 50 goals in 47 games?
I did not know that.
Yeah, wow, really?
No, I'm going to check that. Greg Bowden. That's in the WHA. I think that's a WHA. I think that's the World Hockey League.
Yeah, that's when he was in the W, not in the NHL.
Still counts. That's a lot of goals.
Oh, of course, absolutely. Shotgun Tom Simpson scored 52 with the Toronto Toros before.
Holy!
Everybody says, what's his name?
Holy, spit it out.
First ever in the history of Toronto, but it was Shotgun Tommy Simpson.
New teeth? Hey, Paul, listen to this one. Number 3.
Yeah.
15 goals at the age of 51. Not me in Germany, but
Gordie Howe, eh?
You got it, Gordie Howe. Of all the things I've heard, it is fantastic when a guy 50 and he played the whole season. It's not like he just came in and played a few games. 15 goals. I couldn't do that in 3 years in the NHL.
I played my last game for Canada at 50 years old. And I was like at the end of the game, I thought I was 160 years old.
All right, can I brag?
My number 3. Okay, so you did your number 3. My number 3.
No, hang on.
What?
I said, can I brag?
Oh, sure, yeah, of course.
Okay, well, I went back to play twice in Timmendorf. One to get 2,000 points at 52. Got 3 goals. Got 2,000 points. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And I got a plaque from our buddy Dennis, and it's a nice one.
Yeah.
Right. And then at 59, somebody convinced me to go back and play the 5th division in Germany. Like I'm talking, You would have been in net. I wouldn't have scored on you. That's how bad I was. We won 25-0 against the Russian team out of Hamburg. The kids were so much fun. I probably would have, I could have fathered about half the team and was a grandfather for the rest of them. 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points. Okay, let's go on. That's enough.
Okay, I love your number 3 with Gordy, but my number 3 is one of the best, the ultimate, the Finnish Flash. Timo Solani, 76 goals in his rookie season, and he takes that 76 goal, and he takes his glove and fires up. Boom. Machine guns it, baby. Timu, number 3.
Hey, somebody just said Mike Gardner. Hey, Lori, how are you? I don't know what that means. What about Mike Gardner? He's not a great player, but he's not in any of these things, kids. Wake up. All right. Number 2 for the Gouche. And it's not duck hunting with Jimmy Mann. It is Timo Solani, obviously me being a Winnipeg Jet, but not so much because of that, because there were a heck of a list. Wayne Gretzky, 92. You saw that. Maurice Richard, 50 and 50. Mario Lemieux, 160. But a rookie getting 76 goals at the Winnipeg Arena. And you know what? Gouche was there.
On her. You know what? We're going to do our number 2s are going to be similar because your number 2 is for your favorite team. Yep. My number 2 is for my favorite team. Never will be done again, ever. Tony 0, Tony O, Mr. Tony Esposito for Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. 15 shutouts in his rookie year. They broke Harry Lumley's record in 1931 of 13. Nobody will break Mr. Tony O ever, and he was a Montreal Canadian, Val, before he was a Chicago Blackhawk, and they let him go for a guy named Ken Dryden.
Oh my God. All right. 51 goals in 49 games in 1977. That was Anders Hedberg. Now, was that in the WHA?
Yeah. What year was it?
1977.
Yeah, it was in.
That was my draft year, and I got to skate against Anders Hedberg. That kid can play.
Amazing, but it wasn't the NHL.
You got it. It's WHA. All right, here, let's go to this one. Number 1. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Okay, I'll go first.
Because mine's cool.
Well, it's good. Mine's off the board.
Okay. Well, then mine's regular. Let me talk. Okay, it's a tie. Has to be a tie.
Okay.
Okay. Wayne Gretzky, 92 goals. You can't argue that. 1981-82.
Yep.
How can you even think about scoring? I don't think anybody will ever score 92 goals in the National Hockey League again.
You're right. And you know what the great thing about the Gouche Live featuring Paul Rosen is? We had separate mothers, but there's a lot of things we do that baffles me. So you go with Wayne Gretzky as your number 1 on 92 goals.
No, hang on. Whoa. I said there was a tie. So I've got one more. Tie.
You tied it. Okay, I thought
I had to tie it
between us.
No.
Right. Go ahead then. You're tied.
I had to tie them, Paul.
Apologize.
139 points. This guy revolutionized hockey. And had he this day and age hurt his knee the way he hurt his knee, he would be still playing. But they tore apart his knee. He couldn't get to play in 1972. Obviously, one of the all-time greatest. I love this guy. I don't love the Bruins, but I love this guy, Bobby Orr. Best defenseman, best player in that era, no question, hands down.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And the thing that people don't understand about the great Bobby Orr, he was traded. He signed. He didn't trade. He was signed as a free agent, I think, or when he was going to retire with the
Chicago Blackhawks.
He only played 15 games with the Hawks because of his knee. And here's the class. Anyone watching out there, you want to know class? He gave back every penny that the Hawks paid him because he only played 15 games. That's class, my friend.
Absolutely.
My number 1 is Wayne Gretzky also, but it's off the board, baby. It's something that will never be done, ever. 50 goals in 39 games for Wayne Gretzky. In 1981, December 3rd, against the Philadelphia Flyers, Gretzky scored his 50th goal into an empty net. 39 games, baby. How do you do that?
I love Wayne Gretzky. You know that. I've had him in Germany. I've had him in, and tomorrow we're going to have a really good discussion with a guy, David Lawler. He's going to be talking about Gretzky, and we brought him over to Germany in 2001. And then also I had him in Australia just recently, 2016. And Tommy Grossman, who's coming up, has got a great Gretzky story. I agree with you. The only thing I disagree with is, come on, Gretz, 50th goal has to be in an empty net. I would have left it for the next game, and it would have been 50-40.
Wow. So
Or I probably would have hit the
do
goalpost.
you remember when he was coming down on the empty net? He just should have just left the puck. He had an empty net. What is he supposed to do?
I know. I love the guy, so I'm not beating him up. Hey, you know what time it is?
It's Rosie's rant, baby. Rosie's rant's going to be a positive rant today, baby. We've had a lot of negative in the last few days on the Rosie's rant. Today, I'm going to give a positive shout out to Sportsnet and TSN for giving some joy to a sports fan that is hungry for something. The Toronto Raptors tonight will start. They did 24 days, and tonight it starts the final against the Golden State Warriors. Game 1 is tonight, and it goes straight through. Last night at like 2 o'clock in the morning, I watched the winning game when they knocked out the Milwaukee Bucks to go to the final in Game 6 here in Toronto. What insane memories. The Raptors, I know Val thinks the Raptors still are defending champs because it doesn't look like there's going to be a season. But hats off to TSN and Sportsnet for bringing some joy into what's a joyless sports life right now. Dude, watch Game 1, man, against Golden State tonight. It's good basketball. And the great thing is, you know who won before the game starts.
Yes. Hey, you know what's unbelievable?
What?
We got some great people on there. And your rant was absolutely the best rant because it wasn't a rant. It was more, hey, let's glorify the Raptors. And I'm wearing a shirt and it's got R on it.
For Rosie?
No, and not for the Raptors, but we've got our guest, Scott Taylor, and we're going to ask him what this jersey represents. We'll see if he remembers, all right? Listen, there are lots of things going on here with Greg Bowden. Please read over Greg Bowden's thing and give us that. But Laurie Fennelon, I'm telling you, she's got a picture of Bobby scoring that famous goal hanging on the wall. She's got, hey, listen to this one, Steven Pepin. He played in Germany. I played against him. We played up in Timmendorfer-Strand where I played. And listen to this one. This is not about the Gouche. It's not the Gouche show. It's the Gouche Live featuring Paul Rosen. But hey, guys, my number one is Kerry Goulet in 1993-94 in Greyfrath scored 107 points. And I know it was in 32 games. Do those numbers really quickly. Woo!
That was Hans. He's your best friend, baby.
Shoppy. Well, it was third division, and I think my mom was playing in the other net.
Doesn't matter. You still did it.
Okay.
Paul Rosen numbers up here. You know what? Greg Bowden, 100%. He's saying it was in the WHA, but he's saying that the WHA and the NHL were equal talent. I love you, Greg. I don't know if I agree 100%, but you know, hey, Hedberg, great player.
You know what we're going to need to do is I don't see Tommy Grossman. And I don't see our buddy Scott in the green room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull Val up for a second, and I want you guys to do a little, because I'm going to have to call these two guys because obviously they forgot how to work the magic. So give me a sec. Val, you can take over my spot. We're going to get rid of the second period out of the way. We'll leave it like that. You guys go. I'm going to put myself on mute.
Hey, Val.
Hey, Rosie. Carry
read some of these comments and we'll discuss them.
I gotta say something. I thought Kerry was playing duck hunt when he was actually doing the rifle thing there. Wasn't sure. Listen, I think Greg, you know what? I gotta disagree with you in a little bit in a sense, Paul. When you said the WHA and NHL aren't at par, I think there were seasons that you could have had both combined, and then it would have been great seasons. Equally, kind of thing. So it depends on the era. I agree on that point. I agree. So we got Greg, we got our friend Shoppy telling us about Kerry's career, 107 points. It must have been an off season, I'm guessing, when he scored those.
Or there was no goalies in net.
Or I was in net actually when that happened.
Gouche is laughing, so we know he's listening.
Yeah, we got a good buddy, Greg Bowden, Robert, and everything. So and then we got some great comments going on.
Yeah, I like Val what Greg is saying. You know, he's got some validity to it. You know, there were some great players in the WHA. Obviously, you know, Bobby Hall went there, and Bernie Perrant signed a huge contract with, I think they were the Philadelphia Freedom, or the maybe you can find out what the Philadelphia team was in the WHA. But I know that Bernie Perrant went there and signed. There was a couple of players that signed huge contracts.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up and bring it up in overtime when we get back.
All right, kids. Everybody hear me?
Yep,
Back,
we're good.
guys.
We're good.
Okay, listen. I wasn't only laughing at your comment about warm up. I was or exhibition game. Listen, you just got to go hockey DB me, kid. They're not even right there. They don't have all the dates there.
Oh, the
Hey,
Blazers. Philadelphia.
listen.
Thanks, Greg. The Philadelphia Blazers.
The
You know
Blazers,
what?
yes.
We always like to have some fun, right? We like to have some
Yes.
fun. And, I like to brag, and I don't brag for the fun. I just brag because nobody really knows who I am and nobody really cares. But Craig Ehrlich is on, and I played with him, and it was a national championship down there. You ask him, Paul. You ask him.
Hey,
We're going to
Greg.
get him on. We're going to get him on.
All right.
I scored one of the all-time greatest what do you call that, shootout goal. I even confused myself. You know that guy that went down on the thing and he missed the puck and in an empty net? I actually did that with a goalie. I fell in the corner and the puck went in and I looked like a hero, but nobody knew that it wasn't planned. All right, listen, we've got our buddy Thomas Grossman. Tommy Grossman is in the house. All right, Val, we'll see you in a few minutes. Get ready for this, Paul. This guy is not only a filmmaker and a television producer with extensive background producing for almost 3 decades, with a keen interest in hockey personally and professionally. I met him, I think, at the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2010 and at the NHL draft when he was producing a documentary about grassroots hockey. He's done a lot of stuff, but the one that's really interesting, he's filmed a lot of guys, and one of them happens to be Wayne Gretzky. He's going to give us that information, and we'll talk to him about all the NHL guys. All right, what do we got going? He's got a Bauer. What the heck is that?
Got a mask on and goggles, a helmet.
Well, he is from Montreal. I don't know what he's holding up there. What do you got, Tommy? Tommy?
Can't hear him.
He can't hear us. Well, he is in Montreal.
Is that actually Tommy, or is it somebody All
right, Tommy, we got to get you in. For some reason, we can't hear it. Maybe you got to take the mask off. I'm not sure. But Rosie, Tommy's just one of those guys that's been around the hockey world for a long time. We want to deliver a lot more different stories from around the world. And this guy, I'll tell you, can tell us some unbelievable stories. And once we get him on, I'm going to get Val to figure out what's going on with him. So just give us 1 sec. And Val will be giving you a shout. Tommy, Val's calling you.
He's ready for if anything happens in his house to be protected by that mask. And
hey, Tommy, Tommy's having a little bit of trouble.
Rosie, what's going on, buddy?
No, we're having a little bit of technical problems, and we certainly want Tommy in. So, Val, I'm going to be texting you his number. We don't want to miss this dude. So you've got his number right now. It's on its way. Can you make sure him and Scotty get in this show?
Well, I spoke to Scotty. Scotty's going to be sitting in our green room very shortly.
All right.
I'll get a hold of Tommy.
You got it. Okay. We're back to you there, Paul.
So what do you think of that outfit? Let's take a guess. He had a helmet on. Looked like some type of goggles from skiing. I'm not a skier. A mask from this COVID nonsense going on. What was he holding?
Well, I'm not even going to try and guess, but I can tell you this. He is from Montreal.
Yeah.
He is a Montreal Canadiens fan. Does that not explain a lot? Like, seriously?
Yeah, 100%.
All right, well, while we're waiting for him, let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about another great achievement, Maurice Richard. We just lost him recently, 50-50.
Yeah.
And his brother. Sorry, we lost his brother, Henri, earlier this year.
The pocket rocket.
Unbelievable family. 50 goals in 50 games in that day and age. Your thoughts?
The pocket rocket, 11 Stanley Cups, man. That is insane when you think about that. 11.
Hang on. So he's got 10 rings. Where's
11.
Where does the other one go?
On one of his toes.
All right, good.
Or he got the nose ring and he has it hanging there.
You got it. Well, when we get Tommy up, we're going to ask him about meeting Johnny Bauer. He's a big Johnny Bauer fan. He got to film a lot of guys, and he did a lot of recording of a lot of players throughout his time.
Great Johnny. If we have time, I'll tell Tommy a great Johnny Bauer story with me.
Well, I don't know. We're gonna have a tough time getting him online. All right, Tommy, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. What are you wearing?
What's wrong with you?
Listen, I heard some breaking news. The
Okay.
NHL is coming back.
What?
The NHL is coming back with new equipment.
You know what? I think you'd need to be dressed up as one of the Ghostbusters
I
instead.
almost
For God's
was going to
sakes.
buy it.
All right. Well, you know what? Tommy is into the film and those type of weird things. Tommy, love having you, kid. Let's talk a little bit about Tommy Grossman. What have you been doing lately? I know you're a Montreal Canadian fan, so we won't hold that against you. Did you hear our top three? Were you online, or did you hear us talking about top three?
I was online. I just want to say that this is like special for Paul.
Thank you.
Okay.
I thought I'd wear this just specially for Paul.
Yeah.
Thank you. I still have nightmares from 1971 when Lemieux scored from center on Espo.
Hey, think about it. That I can't really read it, but I bet you that's a Jean Beliveau signature.
That's right. That's right. I got all the players from the 70s on this sweater.
Hey, can I ask you before we get started? Would anybody ever tie Henri Richard? Malcolm Sutherland joined us. Could anybody win 11 Stanley Cups again, or even 6?
Well, I think Cornway has quite a few.
No. I mean now, present day. Could anybody?
Day? I don't think so. I don't think it's possible.
All right.
It's hard to go back to back.
Yeah.
Good point.
But I want to ask you guys, which is the best team in all time history? Which year? What team?
Oh my God!
Oh God! It's I'm going to go with Edmonton.
I'm only going to go the Canadians that had like the 8 losses, or what was it? 8 losses.
That's it. You got it.
All right, then I'll ask you.
76, 77.
Okay, that was an easy one, for God's sakes. What about this one? What was the all-time greatest game in the Forum?
Against the Red Army.
That's the New Year's Eve game with the Russians.
You guys are too smart. All right. Let's get into Tommy Grossman. Tell us a little bit about what you do, what you're doing now, and then we'll get into some of these great stories. I know about a bunch of these stories because I was involved in a couple. Please, Tommy Grossman.
Yeah,
other than being an actor.
Technical issue, taking off my COVID mask here.
Other than being an actor, what do you do?
I'm a film and television producer. There you guys. You just got. Am I still on screen? Because I lost you.
You are. We go off. We want the people to see you that pretty face, and not Paul's. You're good, Tommy. Tommy? Now we lost him. All right, we're not going to go up and down this time around. I'm going to go out. We'll see if Tommy's back in. Tommy, you can.
Are you there?
Yeah. Tell us about you, Tommy.
Nobody can hear us.
Tommy. Oh, Tommy boy.
I won't tell him. I won't take him back out again. Sorry, guys. I know you're all watching. I really apologize for that. I won't bring him in and out. And when we get Scott Taylor, I see him in the green room right now. We won't put them on big screen on their own because obviously there's something wrong with the Be Live. Really looking forward to. I see Scotty in the background there in the green room, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So now let's get our buddy Tommy back. Okay, Tommy, hear us now?
I'm back.
All right, we're not taking you out. Unfortunately, something happens when I put a guest down sometimes, or we go down. So we're just going to leave it go, fly away, Tommy Grossman.
Yes, I think you asked me, what do I do? I'm a film and television producer, and as I met Carrie in Los Angeles at the 2010 draft. Remember, Carrie?
Absolutely, we were having a few beers. Yep.
Yeah, through the Hall of Fame. We were doing a documentary series about Hall of Fame players and grassroots hockey.
Yes.
And have done a lot of hockey product over the years. And recently now we're doing a feature film about a hockey player that was a great hockey player. And he had some personal family issues and had to quit the game. And he didn't become a hockey hero, but he became a real life hero.
Oh, good.
So we think it's really inspiring for kids, that there's something more than hockey. And I think your show shows that it's not just all about hockey.
Well, no, and that's what we're trying to do here. Obviously, having you on, Tommy, it is about hockey. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the people that you met. And, of course, our next guest right after you, Scott Taylor, is hockey. Like, this guy knows he knows every sport, as I know you do too. But obviously, with the Montreal Canadiens, we can talk a little bit about that in a few seconds. But tell us about meeting Wayne Gretzky. That was a really interesting story.
Yeah, it was. I know you worked with Wayne closely, Carrie. I never really got a chance to meet him. Just got a chance to interview him, and it was at the in Brantford at his hometown when they were doing the statue ceremony, and they redid the whole sports recreation center. I think they've spent like close to $30 or $40 million on it. Was pretty amazing. So we worked for months to try to get the interview, and we got there with our crew. And at the last minute, they wouldn't let us in for the interview.
Oh God.
And I said, well, we were invited here. We have our press passes. What are you talking about? And they said, no, unless it comes through Los Angeles, you can't get in on the interview. And here I am sitting outside the rec center. There's tens of thousands of people waiting for Wayne Gretzky, and I can't get in with my camera people and my sound people. So I had invited a fellow. I don't know if you know him, Carrie or Paula. He works with the mayor of Markham, Dennis Flaherty. And I invited him to the event because he's originally from Brantford, and I thought he'd enjoy it. So he comes walking in exactly at the same time as Wayne comes walking in with his entourage, and just near the door, and Wayne sees him and says, "Dennis," and he goes, "Wayne," and they do a big hug, and apparently they played peewee hockey together.
Oh my God, that's
And
fantastic.
they start talking in the hallway, and they say, "Come on down," and Wayne says to me, "Come on down," and next minute I'm in the hallway with Wayne and his VIP people and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Wayne is taking pictures with me, and Dennis and him are talking about old times. And he said, "Remember when the guy was eating popcorn on the bench, and all the handlers are trying to get Gretzky to go outside. There's
Yeah.
tens of thousands of people waiting." No,
Yeah.
he wants to talk about peewee hockey.
No, that's
And
Wayne.
so, yeah, my cameramen are taking pictures and everything of me with him and all this. And he says, "You'll come to the VIP get together after, no problem, And so he does his thing with, he goes outside and signs all the sweaters and does the speeches and everything else. And one thing I learned about Wayne Gretzky that day, and it was an incredible thing, because let's face it, he's an international guy. He's been around. He's a smart businessman. But the minute he came back to Brantford, I realized you could take the boy out of Brantford, but you can't take the Brantford out of the boy.
Yeah, you hear that a
And
lot. That's great.
It was incredible. You could
Yeah.
see how he was real and authentic with everybody in Brantford. There was like no airs, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
that's I had him over in Australia. Same thing. He just not of the Brantford part, but you know what? He was so down to earth, and he signed everything and everything. So kudos to Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah,
Now
it was
I know that
really
I know that
incredible.
not only did you meet Wayne Gretzky in all your travels with the film crew, you met some other very special guys at Road Hockey to Conquer Cancer. Of course, that's run by Kevin Shea, our good friend. Who is
Yeah.
your all-time favorite?
Well, I think Paul is going to love this story. This was incredible. We got a chance through Kevin and through you, and we got a chance to get there and get so many players. It was incredible that we were getting interviews with. And as the day was ending, and it was a very, very hot day, and I was there with my partner Kurt Gegenbaugh, and it was just absolutely incredible. The players were going home, and there was one guy. There were hordes of people signing every single autograph, every single picture. It was the oldest player there, Johnny Bauer.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And it was unbelievable. And he, Kurt, as you know, Carrie, Kurt is in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And Johnny came over to him and gave him special time. And we took a picture with Kurt, myself, and Johnny. And that is my most cherished picture of all time.
Fantastic.
Can I tell Tommy one thing really quick?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Johnny, salt of the earth.
Yes.
I'm doing an event in 2006 after we won the gold medal in Torino. I'm 46 years old. Shout out, my master in the Hall of Fame, blah, blah, blah. Doing an event. Johnny Bauer comes up to me and he goes, "Mr. Rosen," I almost dropped, okay?
Wow.
Mr. Bauer. He goes, "I'll tell you one thing." And then I said, "Call me Rosie," right? So we start talking. He goes, "I tell you one thing. They call me the China Wall." He knew I was Jewish, you rest. "Can I call you the Jerusalem Wall?" I'll take that to my grave, the great Johnny Bauer.
That Johnny is
That's amazing,
yeah.
amazing story, Paul.
Yeah. Listen, really quickly on that, we had Johnny go across Canada in the Hager Challenge, and we were in Calgary, and we were taking him over to a I think it was a Sears, and we're doing a special promotion for Hager, and it came up about what was the name of that thing? You know, dancing, skating with the stars, or remember that movie?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Skating with the
And
stars. Yeah.
Ty Domi was in it, and Johnny Barr said, "Ah, that Ty Domi, I can't believe he's in there. I can skate faster with my goat pads for Christ's sake." That was Johnny Bauer, always there for fun. So again, you met a lot of people. Another guy, and the reason why we're in this is the hockey news. You know, Graham Rooston, good friend of ours, and asked Paul and I to get involved with this Gouche Live featuring Paul Rosen. And that's why we're doing this. Now we're stuck in our base. I'm actually in my bedroom. He's in his sister's bedroom. I don't know what bedroom you're in. But
hey, listen, I never thought I would get into your bedroom. This is really exciting.
No, it's like a Hall of Fame. Look at all it looks like craziness. I got jerseys hanging everywhere. All right, tell us about Graham Rooston.
You make your best moves there, eh?
You got, well, yeah, my wife sleeps in another room. All right, listen, I got asthma. Hey, tell us about meeting him at the LA draft, Graham Rooston.
Yes, Graham Rooston was quite an incredible story. It was a fun story. Again, it was a story about a filmmaker trying to get tickets and get like it's always have to with the media it's always tricky. And I had a guy here in Montreal get me tickets for the LA draft, the 2000 LA draft, which was a great draft, by the way, with Tyler Seguin
Right.
and Hall and a lot of great players. And so I get there, and these tickets that this good buddy got me was in the rafters. And I was like, this is tickets for the public. I mean, I can't get any interviews here. What is this? I fly all the way to Los Angeles, get the cameraman, get the sound man, And he says, well, listen, it was a hard time getting those tickets, And then so I try to get down to the floor where they're doing the draft. And, there's all kinds of security. And they're like, there's no way you can't get in. You got to be part of the team. I said, I came from Montreal. I mean, I got to get in. He says, well, listen, go talk to the media people at the truck. So I go outside the Staples Center. I go to the media truck, and there's a lineup of people there, media people that can't get tickets. And there's a guy at the counter, and he's going, well, I'm the chairman of the board of Bauer Sports. You got to give me tickets. And I was like, oh my God. And so I make a crack in the line, and I said, well, listen, if the chairman of the board of Bauer can't get tickets, I'm not getting tickets. So he comes out with a big smile on his face. At the time, he was chairman of Bauer Sports. And he says, who are you? And I said, I'm a filmmaker from Montreal. He says, oh, I'm originally from Montreal too. And so that's how I met him. And after that, he was kind enough to get me in with the Montreal Canadiens and the Leafs and everybody else. And it was just an incredible story that there he was, chairman of Bauer, couldn't get tickets himself.
That's Graham Rooston. He's got tickets for everything. Hey, listen, Paul, I don't know if you know it, but I think you were at this one. We do the Legends Classic at the Hockey Hall of Fame, thanks to Peter Jaglin. He gets us to be in the dressing room, and we do all this crazy stuff. That's where we had a little bit of fun with Tommy. Pavel Bure shows up, and you know how great Pavel Bure is, and being a Russian, niet, Soviet, right? And he's got that whole kind of nobody can understand what he's talking about. He forgot his equipment. So I had to get this young man, Tommy, to help me find equipment. Tell the story really quickly.
Oh my God. Last story, very quick.
Yeah.
I know you have another guest coming.
Yeah.
This was absolutely incredible. By this time, I kind of got to know Kerry very well and Tony, and I was helping out, with their event. And Kerry says, come on, Tommy, we got to go get him equipment. We got to find equipment. It's like a Sunday. So he says, I know a sports shop. So he drives up to the sports shop, and he starts buying all this equipment, and he's buying all these like small sizes, like peewee. And I said, Kerry, this is not going to fit Pavel. He says, no, don't worry about it. I said, why are you buying peewee shin pads? He says, it's cheaper. So he got all this equipment for him. And then, so we come back to the arena, and we forgot one item, and Kerry comes over to me and says, Tommy, you got to get another item. You got to find this for Pavel right away. I said, what is it, Kerry? He says, a jock strap. We don't have a jock strap.
Did he actually need it? The kid was so fast, nobody catch up to him.
Yeah, it was incredible. So there we were looking around for a jock strap downtown Toronto.
You were watching Gouche Live featuring Paul Rosen. Listen, I'll tell you what, Tommy, I know we only had a short time period with you. I got Malcolm Sutherland saying, hey, I've got a screenplay to pitch you. So you know Malcolm Sutherland. So if it's true, let's get that. And I'll tell you what, Tommy, we're going to have you back on Sunday. You're coming on our panel, which is really cool. You know, we're doing this new concept that we're doing the round table, and we're going to talk all things hockey, but also some of the greatest films, not specifically a film like The Slapshot, but more about documentaries like the one with Jacques Plante and Terry Sawchuk, the one that just came out. And of course, the other one about Richard. So really look forward to seeing you. Can't thank you enough for being with us, Tommy. You got last word. What are your thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, I just want to say that there was a run, Maple Leafs, I think they did have a run of 5 Stanley Cups, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, so it's 2 for us and 1 for you. So that's not too bad.
All right. Always a pleasure to be with Tommy Grossman.
Okay,
we will see you. We'll talk a little bit later and look forward to having you on the roundtable on Sunday. Thank you, bud.
Okay. Thanks, Paul, and thanks, Carrie.
See you Sunday.
All right,
Bye,
buddy.
guys.
Take care.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Tommy Grossman. Wow, what a character. I'll tell you what, our next guest is absolutely incredible. And I wore this jersey for him specifically, so I'm not going to say what it is. We'll see if Scott can remember this jersey. I want to put him on the spot. I'm going to give you a little bit of his accolades for my What the Puck. This guy in Winnipeg needs no introduction. Even in Canada, the name is synonymous with hockey and with all sports. He's the director of Game On. You can go to gameonhockey.ca. He's been tremendous with Stop Concussions, Paul. He's done a lot of charity work for us. He helped us with the Slapshot a few years ago, the golf tournament there. He's on several radio stations. There's too many to even discuss right at this moment, all over North America. Winnipeg Warriors, he's covered the MJHL, which is the Manitoba Junior League, the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League, University of Winnipeg, where I played for 1 season, University of Manitoba, the Bobcats, which are from Brandon. He is a member of the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame and the Media Wall. Man, this guy's got too much. There's about 14 other titles that I can give him. With no further ado, we got the big guy all the way from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Scott Taylor. Scotty, how are you?
Carrie, I don't know who that guy was you were talking about.
That's you, bud. Now listen, I was reading all the stuff. I was reading all that stuff, and I knew you were good, but honestly, I didn't even pay you justice. Paul, look at it, it's notes and notes. We'd be here till next week. We'd never get to hear from Scott.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Good, Paul. I haven't talked to you in years.
It's been a long time. It actually is.
Marty York days.
We weren't as gray back then.
No.
Still good looking.
And better looking. We were a lot better looking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, Paul, what I'd like you to do, Greg Bowden is a monster. Like, he's got things coming out of his yin yang there on comments. Can you just read up, have a couple for us when we're done with Scotty, and we'll bring them all up because he is really doing his research for us. So Scott, I'm wearing this jersey.
I can't see it. Remember,
oh, that's right. Okay.
I'm going to guess it's
No, don't guess. Let me tell you the color. It's white. It's got red stripes, and it's got a big R. Big R.
Riels.
Oh my God! See,
Did he got it?
Yeah, he got. Of course, he does. He knows everything about anybody. If you ask him what color underwear you're wearing, he knows. Larry Firkus is on. Obviously, he runs the St. Boniface Riels.
Sure.
He didn't even know I was wearing this. He did not know I was wearing it. He's on it because of you, Scotty, and he noticed I had the St. Boniface Riels where I played and had great times. I'll tell you what, the St. Boniface Riels helped me get to Europe with being able to play in that league. It was a fast league, a good league, and I know that you covered that. So, Scotty, why don't you give us a little bit of history on all the things that you've done, and then we'll get into some of the great questions we've got for you.
Oh, you don't want to do that.
Yes, I do. I love to hear about you.
I cover hockey.
Okay, so tell me, out of the leagues you covered, WHA, the Western,
the NHL, of course.
Yeah,
And
Yep.
then here, look, I wrote my first hockey piece for the Sarnia Observer covering the provincial midget championships in 1968.
Wow.
So it's been a long road, and so I've done an awful lot. I've covered the Ontario leagues, everything here in Manitoba, and that's the MJ, the MM, the Keystone Junior League, the Capital Region Junior League, the Southeastern Manitoba League, the Tiger Hills Hockey League, the Hanover Taché Hockey League. We were talking about, I remember years ago in the press box, I was sitting with a couple of guys you might remember, Kurt Keelback and Pat Doyle, who is now Patty Don Swanson in Victoria. And we're talking about one of the new players that the Jets brought up, Paul Pooley. And he got into a bit of a scrap, and I said, I don't think he's tough enough to play in the Taché Hanover League. And Pat Doyle looked at me and said, he's not tough enough to play in the Manitoba Midget Hockey League. and I thought at that time that I have probably covered so many different senior leagues. Geez, I've been to 6 Allen Cups.
Wow.
You forget sometimes about and I'm a big fan of the Allen Cup. I've read the trophy. I mean, you know how important it used to be in this country, and how important the Memorial Cup still is today. But the history of the Memorial Cup is truly incredible. So I look back at all those amateur trophies, and a lot of people don't like to cover amateur sports because they'd much sooner cover the NHL and Major League Baseball, and I guess that's where the money is. But boy, it's since I started Game On magazine, it's been really rewarding, covering everything from the Manitoba Junior Hockey League all the way to the Manitoba Women's Junior Hockey League to the Manitoba female. They had to change the name because we can't say midget anymore.
Right.
We're not supposed to say midget anymore. So the Manitoba Female Midget Hockey League changed its name officially this year to, and I'll try to get it right, Manitoba Female Hockey League U18 AAA.
Wow.
The names are going to get longer and longer and longer because we can no longer use that term. So you've got 2 levels of what used to be midget hockey is now U17 and U18, and I think that's going to move into Bantam and Pee Wee eventually and all the rest of them. But I have a great story.
Okay.
And it involves a young woman I worked with in radio, and she started her radio career in Dauphin, Manitoba. And she did the morning show in Dauphin, and the sports guy, who is now the marketing director of the Dauphin Kings, was Christian Laughlin, who's now the marketing boss there. And Christian's a great guy, and he's finished his sportscast, and he did a long story on the provincial midget tournament, Manitoba Saskatchewan tournament that was being played in Dauphin. And on air, she looked at him and said, I just think it's tremendous that they've been able to find all these midgets to play in this tournament. And she has been embarrassed about it ever since. She was never afraid to tell the story. And Christian Laughlin just thinks it's the funniest thing he's ever heard in his life. But the reality is the time has come that you have to change that name. Yeah. It's got to be pulled out of the sport. You can't use it anymore. So I will try to remember from now on to call it U18 or U17.
Scott, that's like a Jonathan Bernier, Nelson Mandela story.
Yep.
Oh my God, just unbelievable. Anyway, Scott, question, I respect bejesus out of you. And I always say when E.F. Hutton speaks that everybody listens. When Scott Taylor writes, everybody reads. What's the difference nowadays, Scotty, with, you've been around a long time. You've covered a lot of players, been in a lot of dressing rooms. What's the difference now for somebody coming up in the business in journalism and wants to get into it? What would you say? What's the one thing they really need to know nowadays?
Well, the message is controlled. When I started doing the National Hockey League, and then through the 80s, we went out to bars with the players. The first guy who ever had a drive in my Ford Explorer. I just bought a brand new Ford Explorer. And the first guy who ever rode in the passenger seat was Wayne Gretzky.
Wow.
Because he had hung around Winnipeg Arena so long signing autographs that the bus left. Kevin Lowe just told everybody, come on, we're getting out of here. Gretz can find his own way back to the hotel. So when it was all done, he'd finished signing autographs for hundreds of kids. And I just looked at him and I said, do you want to ride back to the hotel? And sure, take a ride back to the hotel. It's just down Portage Avenue. And the reality is that doesn't happen anymore.
No.
None of that stuff happens anymore. The message is controlled by the clubs. You get to interview the players that the clubs tell you can interview. The Canadian Football League is still good enough to ask you who you want to talk to. And the Canadian Football League is probably a lot easier to deal with. But in the National Hockey League and Major League Baseball and everything else, Major League Baseball is not bad. And the NFL's still not bad. You still go in the locker room after and you can talk to whoever you want to if they feel like talking. But when it comes to National Hockey League, the guys who are out in the main room are the guys you get to talk to, and you don't talk to anybody else. You don't get to go back in the training room. And I remember times Jim Kite and I would go and kind of hide back in the training room to do an interview so he didn't have to do it in front of everybody on his team, right? It's a different world now than it used to be completely. And while it's not as much fun, it's easier. It's not as hard to work. I guess getting scoops is harder, but you had guys in the same situation as I was in. There were another newspaper in town and lots of radio covering sports. Right now in Winnipeg, we have 2 newspapers and 1 radio station that basically covers sports, and that's it. So there aren't many scoops anymore. You usually read it in a press release from the club before anybody has it on the radio or in the newspaper. It's an entirely different atmosphere today than it was 35, 40 years ago.
You are watching Gouche Live with Kerry Goulet, better known as the Gouche, and Paul Rosen,
better known as Rosie.
Hey, and we got Scott Taylor. What a great opportunity. In fairness to Scott, he cannot see us, so he's kind of working blind with us, but Thank you for the patience, Scott. We had a question here. The WHA, I know we've talked about the Winnipeg Jets a little bit throughout our stuff, and I think you probably, if you did hear, my second overall greatest achievement in an individual statistic for you, 76 goals by Timo Solani.
Mm-hmm.
Which was, of course, in the Jets in the NHL. But tell us the WHA. That was a World Hockey Association. We had some pretty good teams, I'll tell you, in those days, and won a bunch of AFCO Cups. What do you remember about that time?
Well, it was tremendous. I remember a playoff game in Winnipeg, Quebec, and the Jets, 12-9. And Quebec had Tardif and J.C. Tremblay and they just flew. And the Jets, of course, had Ulf and Anders and Bobby, and you wouldn't get a 12-9 playoff game today. I mean, it was spectacular to watch.
Yeah.
But I think, to me, the greatest World Hockey Association story is a story that took place in Sweden.
Okay.
And it started with the Jets having trouble finding legitimate players. Good players. They had Ab McDonald, and they were waiting for Bobby to win his court cases and everything else to allow him to play in the WHA. And they had some journeyman players, and Suitcase Smith was their goalie, and they had some guys. But they knew that they needed, in order to be a championship team, or at least a contending team, they had to get to Europe after they had seen the success of Inga Hammerstrom and Borje Salming in Toronto.
Yeah.
And just by luck, a fellow named Jerry Wilson, who had played pro hockey, and of course his son Kerry was a star, and young Jerry Jr. was an extremely good amateur player and semi-pro player. And Jerry Wilson had a fellowship to go to Stockholm as an orthopod. He was a doctor, as an orthopedic surgeon, to go over to Stockholm for a year to do a fellowship at the hospital there. And so Billy Robinson, the general manager of the Jets, said to him, while you're in Stockholm, if you see any players that are even interesting at all, send me a wire, let me know, and maybe we'll come over and watch them play. And so Jerry didn't think about it a lot after that, but he decided he got a chance to go to a game, a pre-Olympic game between Sweden and Russia. And Russia had Harlamov, who was the fastest man in the world, everybody said. And the Swedes had a bunch of young guys that were pretty good players. And Wilson's watching this game. And puck goes behind the net. The defenseman leaves it for this young Swedish kid. And Harlamoff comes in behind him on the left wing. He's going to try to steal a puck from him in his own zone. And Wilson watches, and this young Swedish guy is 6 strides ahead of Harlamoff by the time they reach the blue line. And Wilson goes out between periods and gets on the payphone and calls Bill Robinson back in Winnipeg and said, "You got to come over here right now. I found your player." And as it turned out, of course, it was Anders Hedberg. Now, Hedberg had already been drafted by Toronto. So Billy Robinson flies to Stockholm, and they try to convince Anders Hedberg to go to the WHA instead of the NHL. And they get the money right. They set the money up. They get Anders to agree to a contract, but Anders makes one demand. I want to take a player with me. I don't want to go to Canada by myself.
Right.
I want a player to come with me. And Billy Robinson's first response was, "Oh, not a problem. You can bring any player of your own team if you want. No, you will get a contract for him. Just great." He said, "I don't want a player from my own team." And they looked at him. No, I want the other guy on the national team, Ulf Nilsson. He's not on my team, but he's the best player in Sweden. I'm not the best player. He is. And they didn't really know a lot about Ulfie. They hadn't scouted him much when they brought him over, but they ended up with maybe the greatest passer in the history of hockey. I mean, Gretzky will always be remembered that way, but anybody who saw Ulf Nilsson pass the puck to Anders Hedberg and Bobby Hull would have their jaw drop. He was one of the finest handlers of the puck, one of the finest passers I ever saw. And that line basically won the Jets 3 out of 4 Avco Cups. And it was all because of Jerry Wilson going to a game and seeing Anders Hedberg leave Harlamoff in his dust.
That's a great story. Unbelievable story, eh, Gooch?
Oh, I love Ulf Nilsson. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
I was blessed to see them play in their heydays, Ulf and Anders and Bobby. And I know that people want to compare between the NHL and you know, obviously we were really lucky too, Paul. We had Norm Bowden on here and he told us some great stories too,
Yeah.
the original Jets. So Scotty, those were fantastic. Really, really enjoy that. Paul, I know that we want to get into now into the NHL. Remember, we were talking about a couple days ago where they were telling us, you know, that they're probably going to go into North Dakota. Scott, I know that you want to maybe just move over a little bit. We're missing your beautiful fit. There we go. Thanks, bud. No, not so far. There you go. Hey, and one of the things, you're looking good right there. Don't move. Don't move.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask him this before. I knew you wanted to talk to him about North Dakota because you have fond memories of that. What's the coronavirus right now doing to the psyche of the National Hockey League's management, upper management? Gary Bettman, Bill Daly. What do you think? Because they're all talking about, will there be playoffs? Will there not be playoffs? We'll be here for the 2021 season. I'd love to hear it from you because I know you're right in there. Tell us what the psyche is right at this moment.
They'll lose $1 billion. I mean, that's where it starts. And remember, the National Hockey League is all about money. It always has been, always will be. And when you're facing a situation where you're going to lose $1 million, you're looking very seriously at trying to figure some way to continue to keep your brand out there. Hockey, of all the American major sports, is probably, and I don't think I'd get much of an argument, the most fragile of the group. They don't have the size of the fan base that the NBA and the NFL and even Major League Baseball have. It's never been particularly an American sport, although it's growing by leaps and bounds, and heaven knows there are a remarkable number of great American players, but it's still semi-regional. It's big in Texas and California. It's big in North Dakota and Minnesota and Wisconsin. It's big in the East Coast. It's big in Michigan. But there are still a lot of places where hockey is a relatively new sport. And so you're fighting for your fan base all the time. And as the NHL remains shut down and probably will be shut down, I suspect maybe through until 2021, it's got to be driving those guys crazy. And that's why you're getting conversations at the NHL level to have some kind of a tournament in a small community where there may not be coronavirus as bad, although nobody really probably knows. And the conversation came up about Manchester, New Hampshire, and Grand Forks, North Dakota, and wow, if you're talking about that, then you're starting to get to the point where you're desperate.
Do you think, Scott, that that's something that is viable? Do you think they'll do like a tournament structure?
Oh, I don't know. My feeling about it, there was an American rabbi who made a great comment. It was on NBC. He made a remarkable comment about the return of professional sports in the United States with fans in the stadiums. And his comment was they should bring it back the day that the owners are prepared to sit in the upper deck with their fans.
Wow.
If the owners will sit with the fans, then it's probably safe enough to come back.
Man.
But until that day, you're not going to put people in stadiums. So you look at the National Hockey League, which is a league that needs its fan base to make money. Yeah, it's got a pretty good TV contract in Canada, and although not as big in the United States, but its TV is pretty good. But its TV is not in the same league as football and basketball, not even in the same world. And yet their salaries for many of their top players are NBA salaries, certainly NFL salaries. They don't get into the 30 million numbers, but you've got $10 million players.
Yep.
So they've got to make big money. And as long as they're out, nobody's making any dough. But still, all of the TV deals they have, they've got to make sure that those are properly negotiated. They've got to make sure that all of the licensing that they have continues to make money, because these players were paid until the end of the season. They didn't shut it down. They have a collective bargaining agreement, and they have to collect paychecks till the end. And so it's very, very difficult for the NHL, I think, now to do anything but talk about trying to come back. Although I would think that a tournament in front of empty stands for TV only seems somewhat counterproductive if you can't guarantee a player's health. And if I'm an NHL player making the amounts of money I'm making, I want to make sure that my health is taken care of.
Well, we're talking with Scott Taylor, not only a historian on hockey, NHL all over the place, but most importantly, a guy that's got a huge resume. We can't thank you enough telling the stories and letting us in on the NHL. Let's shift it a little bit. I've got a couple comments here. Ulf Nilsson had 112 assists in, I think I saw 117 games with the New York Rangers. So that he was almost an assist a game. So you're absolutely dead on with that. And also Kevin Shea says, great stories, Scott. I don't know if you know Kevin Shea. He's a great historian also from the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And our buddy Shoppy in Krefeld, he's one of the top journalists in Krefeld, says, you're the Shoppy of Germany. You know everything about hockey. And then, of course, he says, a great reporter story. Listen, let's go into the Jets really quickly here about the status of the Jets. Obviously, we know they're in the lockout. They went into the lockout with a bunch of question marks. Where do you see them coming out of the of it?
I think they're going to get better. They're going to get better after today. They signed Dylan Sandberg, great young player, Minnesota Duluth, two trips to the World Junior with the U.S. team, an outstanding young defenseman who will make them better on defense. They had a real tough go last spring because they had so much money tied up in Dustin Byfuglien. And Dustin Byfuglien didn't tell anybody in May or June that he wasn't coming back. So they had to go through the free agent period, losing Tyler Myers, losing Ben Sherratt, who's a terrific young defenseman. They lost Brandon Tanev. Yeah,
unbelievable.
Who's a good player, because they didn't have the money to pay these guys the amounts that they wanted and deserved. I'm not going to sit here and say the players don't deserve what they get, because they certainly do. And they didn't have that dough. And Mark Chipman said to me, the president of the club, that if they'd known Dustin Byfuglien wasn't coming back, they certainly would have been able to keep Tanev and Sherratt. Probably not Myers. He wanted an amount of money that a team that had that money would probably have paid him. But they probably would have been able to keep Tanev and Sherratt. And then they ran into all those injuries earlier in the year. So that team was a mess throughout the year. And yet, because of Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk and a defense that was put together with binder twine and duct tape,
Kind of like our show.
And yeah, there you go. And and
You forgot the gaffer tape, Scott. You forgot the gaffer tape.
I got it on. You wouldn't believe the setup I got going with. And you've got 5 stars. You've got Blake Wheeler and Patrick Laine and Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele and Nick Ehlers. So you got 5-star players up front and a bunch of guys that are pretty good grinders. But you had a really good player in Brian Little, who was having one of the best years.
Yeah.
He takes a puck in the head.
Unbelievable.
And now he's got a ear surgery, and his career could be over. And just this kind of stuff. Paul Maurice the other day said that at some point during the season, 9 Jets were playing with broken bones.
Jesus.
Some kind of a broken bone. So this is a team that stuck together. And after the last game before the shutdown for Corona, they beat Edmonton in Edmonton after getting outshot 38-25 because Connor Hellebuck was so spectacular.
Right.
And moved them to 80 points, 2 points out of 3rd place in the Central.
Oh, boy.
First wild card spot in the West. I mean, this was the greatest single performance by a team that I remember in the National Hockey League because, look, I like Tucker Poolman. I think he's got a great future. But that's a defense that boy, there are American Hockey League teams with better defenses in that group. But Neil Pionk turned out to be twice the player everybody thought he would be.
Yep.
Josh Morrissey was Josh Morrissey. They kind of kept it together because Connor Hellebuck not only deserves the Vezina Trophy, but he deserves the Hart Trophy.
Yeah.
The Winnipeg Jets aren't near the playoffs without Connor Hellebuck playing the way he did. And you look at the numbers, you see, oh, Tuukka Rask the best goaltender. Connor Hellebuck's not the best goaltender. Connor Hellebuck is the Grant Fuhr of 2020.
I agree with that.
People look back at Grant Fuhr and the numbers freaks that exist today. They all look at Grant Fuhr's numbers and say, how the hell does that guy get into the Hockey Hall of Fame? Well, he gets into the Hockey Hall of Fame because in Winnipeg, when the score is 5-5 after 2 periods, he makes 13 saves in the 3rd period while the Oilers score 4 times and win 9-5.
Yeah, good point.
He played championship hockey when you needed him to play championship hockey. And that's what Connor Hellebuck did this year. In that Oilers game, it's a 2-2 tie, and he stops 2 breakaways. The Jets make it 3-2, score an empty netter, win 4-2, get outshot 38-25, but suddenly have 80 points. And that's the way it went for most of the season. And there will be nights when he gives up 6 and looks awful. And his goals against is 2.57. But when it mattered, when they played good teams, he was out of this world. 6 shutouts on the season, and all of those shutouts were 32, 33, 34 shots. So they weren't shutouts where the other team had 17 shots and the Jets controlled all the zones. They were nights when this guy just stood on his head. So because of Connor Hellebuck and because of a real nice coaching job by Paul Maurice, who just kept this team together through thick and thin, this Jets club is going to be okay, and it's only going to get better. Their young players will get better. Jansen Harkins will get better. Mason Appleton will get better. Tucker Poolman will get better. Dylan Sandberg will help them. They've got some good young players playing in Europe. They're going to be an okay hockey team as long as this goaltender continues to play the way he does.
I'm so glad you said that, Scott, about Hellebuck, because there's so many people that just look at scores, and I love Paul Maurice by saying, you're in a game. It doesn't matter the score. It's the huge save that he makes to allow his team to win that people don't realize unless you really follow the game. I love that you said that.
Well, we've come to a society now, and of course it started with baseball, where numbers are everything. But numbers in baseball are different than numbers in hockey. Numbers in baseball you can equate to men on base, runs scored, final score. In hockey, you can't always take these new numbers and turn them into something that makes any sense. I'm still trying to figure out how Corsi has any kind of relationship to good teams or bad teams. Because 2 years ago, the top 8 Corsi teams, 7 of them missed the playoffs. So I don't even know what that number's about. And it goes with a lot of these new numbers. I think what matters in hockey more than anything else is how you play when the chips are down. And not only Hellebuck, but Kyle Connor, Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele all played well in 3-3 and 2-2 games. when it really mattered, they really came out and played well. And other than that slump they went through in January, this is a team that could be easily in the playoffs, and there wouldn't be an argument about number of games played, because yes, indeed, they have played 2 more games than a lot of the teams they're ahead of.
You are listening to Scott Taylor. I'll tell you what, the easiest interview I've ever had. I'm not an interviewer, but I'll tell you what, just listen to this guy. I can listen to you all day. So listen, Scott, we need to get you on one of our roundtables. I hope you'll accept. We love your stories. We love your energy. And this time you'll be actually able to see us and we can have a little bit of fun. So I'm going to invite you. I hope you can take the invite. We'd love to hear about it. Listen, Paul, you forgot to mention Buffy. I know he brought it up, but who is my mother's favorite?
Dustin Byfuglien by far. She loved him. Shirley Goulet went crazy for him.
Look what I got. He can't see it. He can't see it.
Chicago Blackhawk puck signed by Buff.
And the 10 Cup.
Yeah.
Won it in there.
Do you know what? Everybody loved Dustin Byfuglien until they didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know we've taken a lot of your time, so we're going to ask you, I know that, Paul, you wanted to ask this question about Buff.
Yeah, I just, I got to get to know him very, very briefly in 2010 with the Hawks. Huge part of the Hawks winning that cup. What was he like for a journalist? What was he like for a reporter? Was he that good a guy?
Well, like I say, the message is controlled, so the only place you see him is in the room. He was fine. He spoke after most games. He certainly answered the music if he had made a big mistake that might have cost them a game or hadn't played particularly well. He wasn't shy. Wasn't the greatest interview in the world necessarily, but he always stood up for his team. There was nothing wrong with Dustin Byfuglien. He just got tired of playing, and I guess didn't know it until it was too late. Until his own team wasn't able to keep some of the players because his salary cap dough got in the way, and he was just done before training camp and wasn't going to play anymore. And it looks like now the Jets tried to move him in February and maybe give him a chance to play, but nobody seemed to want him. So I guess any clubs that were interested to talk to him, and quite clearly he had said that he wasn't interested in playing hockey. So right now he's just kind of out there in limbo.
Yeah.
Now, Scott, I know you've written a lot of books, right, in your past. And is there a book about Buffy at all? Obviously, we know Buffy and what's that? Buffy and the we lost. See, he got so excited about Buffy, we lost him. Scotty, wow! I'll tell you what a great interview, and what a great guy.
Yeah, we got it. When I had a show, a late night show a number of years ago, he used to come on Friday nights all the time. And he was actually my football guy. We talked CFL all the time. So we definitely have to talk CFL. And we got to get him on the round table.
Well, we're not going to do it now because, we've taken a lot of his time. Hopefully we can get him back in for just a goodbye. Man, some of the stories about the Swedes, I honestly got to skate with Ulf Nilsson, Anders Hedberg, and Bobby Hull. I think it was about 17 years old, and I was just in my glory days. And that was the years. Don't forget, in the NHL, it was up and down the boards, and I was a pretty good skater. So I got to skate, and I just wanted to be Anders Hedberg. But when he told you about the slick hands of an Ulf Nilsson, you could just see this guy. He was they called Kent Nilsson the Magic Man. I'll tell you what, Ulf Nilsson could have been the Magic Man.
Wow. Yeah. I'm looking forward to more stories from Scott. He gave me some great ones when we did the show, but we're looking forward to. We got a lot of great responses from people too, Gouche.
You know what? I wonder if he didn't pay his Shaw bill and they cut him off. And listen, we'll bring in if he comes back. I know we've been here. We've gone a little bit over than we usually do, but hey, well worth it. Hearing about, obviously, for me, the Winnipeg Jets. I mentioned to Val, we got a lot of great comments about Scott, and I hope that we can get more reporters like this that can come on and talk about it. Robbie Agonde just came out, a great hockey player out of Thunder Bay. We won an Allen Cup together. You heard Scott mention the Allen Cup and how big it was. I got an opportunity to join the team in Thunder Bay. Robbie had already won a couple with Mark Backer. They won 4 in a row. I happened to come for their 4th Allen Cup, and I'll tell you what, nothing better than winning an Allen Cup in Thunder Bay. I'll tell you, we had a hell of a party. But listening to Scott tell us stories, it'd be great to get other reporters out. As we talked with Shoppy, he knew everything about the Crayfeld Penguins. It'd be great to get reporters from each particular team, especially the Chicago Blackhawks.
That would be great. That would be great. Well, we'll give it a shot. We'll put it out there.
Hey, you know what? We got Scott Taylor. You know what we're going to do?
Okay.
We got Scott Taylor. What we're going to do is we're going to bring Scott Taylor back in. All right. I don't know if we've got Scotty. Are you there? Scott? There's Scott. You know what we're going to do is we're going to bring Val. Scott, are you okay?
Yeah, for a minute or two. Yeah.
You're okay. Good. You know what? We were going to bring Val up, who does our overtime. We want to talk CFL. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to ask you to come back. We want to do a show on the Canadian sports like that in MLS. I know you may not be following much of it, but even the Blue Jays and the CFL, we want to really find out what's going on with the CFL. So we'll leave that for the next show. Scotty, your last word. Thank you so much for sharing it. We've got a bunch of people that have said here, you know, the stories about finding out about Ulf Nielsen and obviously Hedberg, the way the Winnipeg Jets got Ulf Nielsen, or sorry, Anders Hedberg. That's the first time I've heard it, and I'm from Winnipeg, so thank you for that. Last point before you talk about that, what was the feeling that day when the Jets were leaving? I remember they were, you know, I was there actually in the parade where kids were bringing their little pinky bags to try and keep the Jets in. If you could just give us a really quick what the feeling was when we lost the Jets, and obviously then tell us what it was like when they got them back.
Well, I think it's better to tell a story when they got them back. I mean, it was the saddest thing in the world when they left. Kids thinking that they could save the team by
with piggy banks,
bringing piggy banks. It just, I mean, that's really sad. Whoever brought that on, it was some radio thing, and boy, that's a low blow to a community.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I never thought of it. Yeah, Scott, thank you. I didn't think it that way.
You just like that's. I mean, they were gone. They had to build a new arena. They didn't build a new arena. Gone. It was that simple. There was no other way. We had Winnipeg Enterprises. We had a series of politicians that weren't interested in the National Hockey League, didn't think they mattered to the city. And boy, did they prove them wrong in 2011 when they brought them back.
Yes, they did.
And that's the saddest part about this whole shutdown. It's the saddest part of all because the Jets are a huge part of the community. Yeah, probably the honeymoon is over. People aren't scrambling for tickets to all 41 home games. It's not cheap. People are finding other ways to spend money. A lot of their fans were very young in 2011, and now they have families and kids of their own, and money goes to different places.
Yep.
The world has changed in 10 years, and yet still the Jets, for the most part, fill the building every night. And the Jets are an important part of the community. You go to work, you talk about the Jets. You go to work, you talk about the Bombers, you talk about the Jets. That's what's important in this community. Yep. And when they came back in 2011, it was as if the light turned on in Winnipeg again. The light had been off for 15 years.
Yeah. I recall that.
And as much as you'd love to say, well, the Moose were great. Yeah, the Moose were pretty good. They had some good years. But it's the funniest thing. I remember when I worked for the ball club, we were in the suites one night, and we've got two TVs going with the NHL playoff game. Pittsburgh was in it, and with the Moose playoff game against Grand Rapids or Chicago or somebody. And you would look at the two games, and I was sitting with a couple of other hockey people, coaches in town, and for the first time they said, the American Hockey League isn't one step slower than the NHL. It might be 3 steps slower than the NHL.
Wow.
It's a completely different game when you watch the two of them side by side.
I agree, yeah. Yeah,
the
true.
NHL is an international cream of the crop, the greatest players in the world, and it is played at a pace where you really only understand it when you're ice level in the rink. If you're sitting high, you don't see it the way you see it when you're right at the glass. Because when you're right at the glass, those guys are flying, and they're fearless, and they're huge. And that's a frightening game at glass level if you've never played it.
Well, Paul and I wouldn't know
And
that.
I've
We
seen
can't
pictures
afford.
of your face after getting hit,
Yeah.
and you know firsthand what it feels like.
Hey, Paul and I can't afford those type of tickets, so we're always in the nosebleed. So that means when we come to Winnipeg to watch a game, Scotty, you're going to use your connections, and you and I are going to be ice level, Paul. What do you think of that?
That's not going to happen in my lifetime.
I think we've lost Paul. Hey, Scott, we're going to let you go. Yeah, he's saying, yeah, Gouche, Scotty can do it. Anybody can do it. Listen, somebody just asked the question, what is Sports Masters on your hat? He likes it.
Oh, it's a website called sportsmasters.com. It's a community. It's like Facebook to a degree for athletes 35 and over.
All right, we're going to go to it. I'm going to check it out because I'm over 35. Yeah. Scott, yes, thank you. We're going to let you go. So and where can we get I know we can get to Game On. It's gameonhockey.ca.
Yep.
We're going to post that up. You got to read this guy's story. He wrote a good story about Gouche, about when I lost the rinks. We're going to do a little bit more of expansion on that one. Scott, in the next couple of weeks, I'll spend some time with you. I'll tell you what, you are one heck of a guy, an ambassador for ice hockey all over the world, but most importantly, a true Winnipegger. And we're going to get you back on to talk about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who won after 29 years. Wow. You happen to know my number, right?
Yeah. I you know what? It's interesting. I saw that game.
It all came together.
See you guys.
See you, buddy. Thanks, Scott.
Scott, be well, buddy.
He is unbelievable. I'll tell you what. That was unbelievable. I'm sorry we took so much time. I know we've gone way over, but we're not going to cut out the overtime. We got Val in the background ready to go. He's got some interesting stuff, and I want to hear about the Montreal Canadiens and the Chicago Blackhawks again. I know we didn't get too much into Buffy. We both have respect for Buffy. You obviously with the Chicago Blackhawks. We with my mother being a big, huge fan of his. But there's more to the story, and hopefully when we get him onto the roundtable, Paul, we can get more out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Without further ado, we've got ourselves Val with overtime. How you doing, buddy?
Great interview with Scott. You know what? I'm just looking up the that 96 Winnipeg team. They had a hell of a team to do some damage. Like Keith Tkachuk, Timo Solani, Zhamnov, Numanin, Igor Korolev.
Yeah.
Just to name a few. And the goaltender is Nikolai Havibulin.
Yeah, that's right.
Wall, that's where he started, the Bulin Wall.
Yeah. That's right.
Zhamnov came. They got him through Chicago when he was with Arizona and slipped back because for Jeremy Roenick.
And Timmy Chevalier was the other goaltender. They had a great team, that's for sure.
This wasn't actually planned that we were going to just talk about my Winnipeg Jets. Somehow with Scott Taylor, he's such a profound.
I had him on every Friday night for probably about 3 months, and we talked CFL. Boy, he knows his stuff.
Well, we're going to get him back because I know Val's a big CFL guy. I'm a CFL guy. I've got tickets. I haven't paid for them yet for the Toronto Argos. So hopefully they can get started through Brian Green, our good buddy, and Pinball Clements. Those are two guys we want to get on the show. All right, Val, go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to touch off on one more thing. Ulf Samuelsson had 57 goals.
Not Samuelsson.
Ulf Nielsen, sorry, my bad. 57 goals, 112 assists, and 170 games. Finished off with 169 points, just with 4 seasons with the New York Rangers. Imagine if he had played his full career in the NHL. He was better. He was almost as a point a game man.
Paul, what's really sad about that is that when Bobby Hull, Ulf Nielsen, and Anders Hedberg were playing in the WHA, everybody was trying to compare them. I saw them play. They are no question one of the greatest lines that ever played hockey in history. The biggest difference is that when the Jets went into the NHL, they had to give up a bunch of players. Ulf Nielsen and Anders Hedberg ended up in New York with a defenseman who was also an incredible player from Sweden, Lars Schuberg.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, every team, when it came back in, they could only protect, I think, 2 guys, and it wasn't good.
Yeah, terrible.
All right. Sticking with the Winnipeg connection there, I'm going to give you my top 3, how you gentlemen spoke in the beginning. Yep. I'm going to go a little bit off the board. I am going to start off with Martin Brodeur, at 125 career shutouts. Obviously, it isn't a season, but it is a career. Nobody ever thought that Terry Sawchuk's career shutouts of 103 would be broken, and Martin Brodeur actually did accomplish that feat.
And just one second, Paul, you know him very well, right? You know Martin very well.
Yeah, phenomenal guy. Great. Signed my chest and arm over the heart before the Paralympics in Torino in 2006.
Yeah. All right.
Great guy. I got a chance to meet him at the Hall of Fame induction. A really great guy. Now, off the board, I'm going to go with Adam Oates. He literally put Brett Hull on the map, in my opinion. In that 1 year when Brett Hull scored 86 goals in one season, Adam assisted for a total of Adam got 115 points that year, and I believe the number was 90 assists.
Jesus.
And he then topped it off in 92-93 when he went to the Boston Bruins, and he finished that season with 142 points. Adam Oates is my number 2. And my number 1, totally off the board, I'm going to go with the luxury line. It's incredible how one line in WHA can get 609 points total. That is my top 3.
Who's the luxury line?
Norm Bowden, Bobby Hall.
That's right.
And Chris Bordelot.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. You know what was cool to hear about was the fact that Scott told us about some of those NHL or WHA games where they were 12-9 and 10-11. Yeah, I forgot all about that. They were really high scoring but entertaining hockey, like unbelievably entertaining.
I also liked back in the day when the lines were named. Nobody has names anymore. The Hawks had it was Dennis Hall, Pitt Martin, and Jimmy Pappin, the MPH. The team had the lines, man. I loved it. The French Connection with René Robert, Gilles Perreault, and Rick Martin. There's no more names anymore, man.
Yeah, but Greg,
get 3 guys and name a line.
Paul, Greg Bowden just put up the hotline. Who are they? The Winnipeg Jets.
That must have been the with Bobby Hall, was it not?
Greg.
No, they were the luxury line.
No, you just said that was with Norm Bowden. I'm talking about with Nielsen and
Hedberg.
Nielsen, Hedberg, and Bobby Hall.
We're waiting for Greg Bowden to come on and tell us.
Bobby
Okay,
Hall is in both lines, probably.
You got it. All right, tell us what else, bud.
Okay, we're going to touch on Paul's love for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes.
So those of you who joined us at our very first roundtable this past Saturday, you knew that Paul loved the fact that the Montreal Canadiens passed on Denny Savard as their number 1 pick. Right, Paul?
You got it.
All right. And then he was taken 3rd overall.
You got it.
Denny Savard ended up winning a Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
with
the Montreal
Canadiens. I'm sorry, bud?
He never what?
Not a Stanley Cup ring. He never played. Watch the games. He was on the team, but he never played.
He did play in the playoffs. He does have a playoff. I think he got 5 playoff points in total before he got injured.
Did he play in the Stanley Cup? It was more. It wasn't really an injury. It was more of he was a little older.
How old was he? That's a good question. How old was he?
I'd like to know that. Check. But you know what, though? Denny, after winning the beloved Stanley Cup with the Montreal Canadiens, he did go back to Chicago, played another 3 to 4 seasons, and finished his career out in Chicago.
Listen,
you know what? In his heyday, he was one of the best the Savardians been around.
I was just going to bring that up. There's
time.
He made. You talk about guys making guys, man. Al Secord scored 50 goals twice. And Al Secord was just a knucklehead guy. He played hard and he did everything he could. But Al Secord was not a 50-goal scorer without Denny Savard.
No, absolutely. I agree with that.
And Brett Hull was nobody without Adam Oates.
Well, I don't know about I don't know about man. Brett Hull did it with many teams. Okay.
Didn't he win a Stanley Cup with Dallas?
Dallas and Detroit. But Brett Hull's greatest careers is when they had the famous Hall and Oates line. In St. Louis, and when they lost that,
wasn't that a band? Hall and Oates,
and still
hold on, Val.
Yes,
1 second here. There's no doubt that Hall Oates was a great passer, and he set up Hall in those years. But Hall had a career outside of Oates also. Great stuff with Oates. We're talking about Denny Savard making a guy like Al Secord when he was with the Leafs and he was with the Bruins. He was just a fringe guy. That's a little different.
Yes, for sure.
Wow.
But I remember Denny Savard playing the old Chicago Stadium, and it looked so dark and everything. A lot of great games when watching him play against the Leafs, because we caught all the Leaf games up here and everything. So those great spinoramas. But I still stick to the fact that Brett Hull has had a great career, 2 Stanley Cups. But I think his best production in his years was when he was playing with Adam Oates. His production did drop off when Adam Oates left due to contract reasons with St. Louis. So that's I feel like we're having a round table.
Still a great score.
You know what? I'm going to ask you this question, Paul. Who was the other Savard that had the spinorama at the blue line?
Sir Savard.
2 Savards spinning around.
You think I'm an idiot? I know my hockey.
No, I know you do. I was just checking you.
All right. And a Montreal Canadian.
What do you got, Val? Paul, that's one thing Paul is. He may like a team, but he loves hockey, and he can talk hockey all over. Knows a lot more than I do about the NHL.
That is so
what do you got?
So true. Listen, just a fun story out of the e-racing that we have in the world.
Are we back to that e-racing thing? And what's that basketball thing? Oh my God! Come on.
The only reason I'm bringing it up is because Kerry, you were involved in the racing world for a short time. And
yes,
Paul,
I was.
You know that being a Paralympic athlete, sponsorship means a great thing to your training and development as you're trying to get into the Olympics.
All right, you're right. Yeah.
Okay? So there's a funny story that came out of e-racing and NASCAR. I did mention before that NASCAR started this e-racing version just to get their fans back in and have a season going where drivers actually sit from their homes and race like it's a real competition, right? So I'm just going to read this quickly. Bubba Wallace was taking part in one of NASCAR's races this past weekend. He crashed out 11 laps in. So he went to proceed to do what's called a rage quit, where you go ballistic on the video game and you just quit and everything. Where in the end, he went on Twitter and he bashed the fact that this is a joke, yada, yada, yada. So one of his sponsors said, good to know your opinion on this. We want drivers, not quitters. Blue Emu, one of his sponsors for his team, has actually dropped Bubba Wallace. Now, this is e-racing, but it's still NASCAR. It's a form to get their sponsors out there.
Wow.
Kerry, what's your opinion on this? Since
Well, you gotta watch. Obviously, we know that, Paul. You know that when you played for Team Canada, you had a certain protocol that you had to watch, and you couldn't obviously go outside of the box or even cross that line. So he deserves it. Listen, without sponsorship, we all know that. We've talked about that, and we don't know what's going to go on in the. Paul, I don't know what your thoughts are, but that I feel he deserves to get reprimanded for it.
I totally agree, Gouche. You got to, if you put it out there, you got to be able to take the consequences.
And in this day and age, with internet and like it's everywhere, right? You can't even hide from it.
Well, it's so bizarre because you wouldn't think that sponsors would drop you from doing this NASCAR event. But you know what? It's the only way NASCAR can get their sponsors out there and still have advertising for their fans.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's good news. Yep. But I'll tell you what, sad for the driver, but you got to learn your lesson. All right. Yep. Listen, anything else you got, Val?
Yeah, just one of the craziest stories coming out of the UFC. Dana White, president of the UFC, has supposedly secured an island where he's going to hold his UFC events, where other organizations are shutting down or postponing. Dana White still thinks he can hold his fight events, and he's secured, quote unquote, an island.
All right. You know what? I'm going to say to this, Paul, I think you're going to agree with what I'm going to say. Greed. Everybody else is shutting down. You can differ with me, guys, but I think right now, in respect to what's going on in this world, he should shut it down like every other sports organization has shut it down. Some of them have to. Of course, he can go buy an island or go, maybe it's Fiji or something like that. I find that disrespectful, not only to sport, but also to mankind.
Me too. I find 100% the fact that we're showing replays of games on TV, and that's great. But to do something live with the amount of lost life that we have around the world, that's so disrespectful.
Yeah.
It is one of the most bizarre stories coming out of sports.
Getting an island. Listen, Paul, you and I, when we get rich on this thing, I'm buying an island, and you and I are going to go play on it.
You got it. I'm waiting to play on an island.
All right, Val, thanks very much. We will see you tomorrow. We've got great guests tomorrow. We've got my buddy Dave Lawler.
Yes, Dave Lawler, crazy hockey fanatic and musician.
Great musician.
Good friend Tim Stapleton, former Jet, former Leaf, former Atlanta Thrasher.
Yeah, Blackhawk.
And Blackhawk and IHC alumni will be joining us tomorrow.
Absolutely. He was in with us over in Australia. Thanks, Val.
Take care, boys.
Great job, kid. Hey, Paul, let's stay on for just a couple seconds because Greg Bowden has brought up a really good point. I did not know this. Brett Hall had 0 empty net goals in his career.
Because he was hardly put on the ice at that point. Very few coaches liked him. When it was critical and it was...
That's a good point. Never thought of it that way.
You're usually up by 1, right? So it's critical defensively. Nobody's putting him on. Remember Mike Keenan telling the story?
That's right.
No way.
Hey, Paul,
good one, Greg.
I'll tell you what, you got a vast knowledge of hockey. I wouldn't even have thought of that one because there were a couple of coaches that didn't put. I was not the greatest defensive player in the world, but you didn't pay me to play defense.
That's all.
Right? That's it.
Yeah, they weren't paying Brett Hall to back check.
Yeah. All right, Paul. Let us tell us about your thoughts on Scott Taylor giving us that information. Unbelievably.
Yeah. Well, great show, totally. You know, Tommy Grossman knows his stuff and brought some great stories too. And then Scott Taylor, who is the man, and he told us some back room things that nobody knew about. Even you live in Winnipeg and you didn't know about it. And then the fact that we're going to get some real good things about him. The heart and soul of Canadian football. The CFL is still a big game. Hopefully, it won't get destroyed by the COVID virus, and we'll still be able to get some CFL.
Yeah, I know that Val's a big Toronto Argonaut fan. Are you a CFL fan?
Love the CFL, man. Going to games all the time. I love
it. Okay.
Damon Allen, I get tickets from him.
That's
all
right.
The time.
Good guy. Love him.
Todd Kierstead, a good friend, and love the Argonauts. Go back to the Argonauts, back to Mel Prophet, back when I was a teenager.
Hey, I just found out Craig Ehrlich, who's watching out of Chicago, Tim Stapleton used to play for his Sunday night skate. Wow.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Man, Tim Stapleton's worldwide. I'll tell you, worldwide. All right, Paul, really enjoyed the show today. Look forward to tomorrow. Obviously, Dave Lawler. I don't know if you ever met Dave, but he came over to Germany with the Alan Frew and Glass Tiger for the 2001 World Championships. He was representing our charity Carries Kids, and he had the time of his life with Mr. Gretzky, and he's going to tell us those stories tomorrow, and he may even play us a little song.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to it.
And then, of course, we got Timmy Stapleton, just a small little man with the biggest heart. Love the kid. All right, Paul, you've been watching Gouche Live featuring Paul Rosen. I'm Kerry Goulet, better known as the Gouche.
I'm Paul Rosen, better known as Rosie.
Last word.
Yeah. Hey, Kiston hockey sticks. Make sure you're using them.
Forget the tomato thing.
Yeah.